What are the key differences now when travelers fly?
Masks are mandatory. Social distancing is in place as much as possible. Arrows to indicate where you go. Touchless as much as possible. Better queue management. Better sanitization of the public places and the aircraft itself. More organized boarding to reduce the mingling as much as possible. On board, you can anticipate less service, less interaction between the crew and the passengers, less mobility on board, or more controlled mobility on board to reduce the potential for contamination. Extra sanitization. Masks are mandatory on board all aircraft. So it's a very sanitized uh, environment. And in Asia, you're used to seeing temperature screening, but temperature screening on a regular basis in North America and Europe is not so predominant. Those are the types of things you're going to see as you make your way through an airport and onto an aircraft.
So as more routes are opening back up, governments are talking about these travel bubbles. Are airlines actually limiting the sales of seats to increase social distancing, or are they desperate to fill the planes back up?
It depends on the market, because statistics will illustrate domestic travel has rebounded a little bit. If you look at Asia, we're seeing numbers getting more closer to where they were this time last year. I think 30% less year over year in the China domestic market, as an example. But international travel is still 92% less than it was in July 2019. So there's not as many people on aircraft as we would think. But by and large, no, airlines aren't requested. They're doing it as much as possible, and because the flights aren't full, that opportunity presents itself. But with the use of masks, with sanitization, frequent hand washing, and all those things, HEPA filters on board, the airflow of the aircraft, the fact that you're facing forward, all these things reduces the opportunity for transmission on board, regardless of whether you are sitting next to someone or not. But you have to take precautions. So yes, the airlines are selling the seats. It's not out of desperation. It really is it's not required. And if the flight is full, follow the rules.
How can you regulate and enforce these new measures?
Well, regulation right now is, by and large, done between the governments themselves, which we are the most heavily regulated industry in the planet. It's a reason why we're also the safest industry in the world. And so we're used to having oversight. We have our safety management systems within our airlines ourselves, which are very robust. And we're treating this just like we would anything else in our safety management system, aircraft, engines, fit to fly, or crews, etc. So it's very much right now it's in a self-regulated environment, but there are audits in place to ensure that we're following the basic protocols of what's been suggested internationally by ICAO.
Now, the airline industry has been crippled by this pandemic. How do you see the airline industry 12 months from now?
12 months from now? Well, I think 12 months from now, maybe I'm an optimist. I think that we will be much closer to beginning to regain our numbers to where we were in 2019. We won't be there fully, but we believe and anticipate next summer's travel to be very similar to years in the past. We also believe these restrictions will be removed. Very important, these are temporary. These cannot be permanent. We cannot end up making the passenger journey even more difficult than it is today. You draw the parallel after 9/11 with the security checkpoints, liquids and gels and all those things, which are passé now at the moment with technology, but we still do them. We can't have this in place 12 months from now. So we're anticipating a new normal, but more closer to what we're used to.
What do you think are the key lessons learned for the industry during this pandemic?
Well, I think we need to update our pandemic response as an industry. But in this case, we were pretty good at it. But when you look at this is unprecedented. Not only was our industry impacted, but the entire globe and our whole way of being and our social lives were impacted as well. How could you prepare for that? I'm not so sure. But we, as an industry, are robust. We will learn from it. We will have a playbook when and if this ever happens again. Hopefully, I'm retired by then. But we will learn from this, and we will be prepared to make sure that we play this out the way it does. But shutting down airlines overnight, I don't think anybody would be prepared to deal with that, no matter what, because it's not systematic. It's just random.
Nick, your career in aviation spanned over decades. If people have to travel during these times, what is your message to them?
Get familiar with what your requirements are. Don't travel if you're not feeling well. Be respectful of other people's space, and make sure that you frequent hand washing, follow the rules, wear the masks, and also know exactly what is expected of you based on the destination you're going. Because right now, it depends on what part of the world you're in, there's a different rule for everything, which is also an issue that we need to address in sort of standardizing our response to the pandemic and removal of quarantines. So it's really about get yourself educated, be prepared, get there early. Processing time is longer, but once you're on board, happy travels, because it's time to get on airplanes again.
Nick Careen, very insightful information. Senior Vice President for IATA. Great conversation with you today. Thank you.
Thank you.